Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scott.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 119 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as always by the infamous Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joey. Yourself?
Very good, my friend, very good. Right, let's jump straight into part one. Of course, part one being the review part of the show. In fact, just before we get into that, it's going to be a bit of a strange show this week. And when I say that, I mean things are going to be a little bit different. We've never actually had a female guest on the show. Of course, we've had, Ayaz has been away, and we've had, a female boxing media member join us, and join me, I should say, for the period of the show. But today we will be interviewing two, not just one, but two females on the show, so it will be something different. It will be a first here on the BoxHard Podcast, a little exclusive. So yeah, like I say, jumping into the review part of the show, we're going to start with a card from last week that happened over in France. It happened over in the Palais des Sports Marcel Cerdan, which is in some part of France. I'm not quite sure where. A couple of fights to mention on the bill. Firstly, I'm a little bit sad about this one because a guy on this bill called Frank Petitjean actually beat my fighter that I like called Andrea Scarpa. Andrea Scarpa now 22-4. Petitjean gets win number 20. He's got 4 losses and 3 draws. It was for the EBU EU super lightweight title there. A unanimous decision over 12 rounds for Frank Petitjean, and a loss unfortunately for Andrea Scarpa. Also on this bill, Mohamed Mamoun, he picked up the IBO World Super Lightweight title. Again, the IBO obviously not really a big sanctioning body that holds that kind of status as a proper world title, but nonetheless it's another piece of silverware there for Mohamed Mamoun. I'm pleased for him. He's 20 wins now and 2 losses, his record. Also, the guy he took on, Emiliano Rodriguez, was 21-0, completely undefeated, and he took his O here, so I'm really pleased for Mamoun. He's had a good 12 months or so, I suppose, now, with that win and the Eggington win, of course, beforehand. It was a unanimous decision over 12 rounds there also. It was almost a shutout, I think, on 1 or 2 of the cards, so all the very best to Mamoun. Moving over now to Germany, one fight to mention at the Box Camp P1, which sounds like a really serious venue. There was only one fight on the bill, and it was quite surprising. It was the return of Enrico Colin. Of course, he got knocked out in the final round recently against Beterbiev for the vacant IBF light heavyweight title. Well, Colin jumped back in there with a guy who was 3-11. I'm not quite sure why, but he jumped in there with him and knocked him out in the second round, so a TKO there in 2 rounds. It was only scheduled for 6, but Colin is now 24-2. Moving over now stateside to the Barclays Center, Brooklyn, New York, USA, Ayaz. And remember, we didn't do any predictions, but we need to talk about the Prediction League. We need to bring it back because, we've been slacking a little bit recently. I'm going to start down the bill a little bit here. The brother of Lamont Peterson, Anthony Peterson, he took on a guy called Luis Flores, 23-8. He didn't have a great record, Flores, but I was saying that Peterson has been so inactive, about 6 fights in 7 and a little bit years, I think, for him. He returned to the ring and he picked up another win here, a unanimous decision win over 10 rounds. It wasn't televised. I haven't seen it. That is win number 38 for Anthony Peterson. He's now 38-1. Flores gets another loss, 23-9. Also on the bill, heavyweight Polishman Adam Kalnacki. He moved to 17-0, a KO in 6 rounds against Iago Kiladze, which was a really good finish. I saw the finish again. It wasn't televised, unfortunately, but I'm getting to like Kalnacki. I think he's quite a solid fighter. I think he's based in Brooklyn. I could imagine it would be quite a decent fight between him and Big Baby Miller. Yeah, I'm getting to like Kalnacki. I think he's got quite a bit of talent about him. 17-0 now. Marcus Brown was on the bill. He took on Francis Ntetu, who was 17-1. I think last week I said that this could be fight of the night. Marcus Brown, some people kind of saying he should be stepping it up, and whenever he does step it up, he looks really, really good. And here was no different. He picked up a TKO in round 1 against Francie and Tetu, so he's now 21-0, Marcus Brown. I really like the look of Marcus Brown. Ayaz, obviously, he's in that division, the light heavyweights, which again, there's so many guys at light heavyweight which are really going to be the future of boxing. Marcus Brown's one of them. Anthony Yard perhaps is up there, maybe not so much advanced as Marcus Brown at the moment. Definitely doesn't have the amateur pedigree that Brown has, but the light heavyweight division's really looking like a great division for years and years to come. Ayaz, would you agree with that?
Oh yes, I agree with that.
Okay, short and sweet there from you, Ayaz. Let's talk about the two main fights. I'm going to start with the co-main event / the chief support. Robert Easter Jr. 20-0 took on Javier Fortuna 33-1 with 1 draw. It was a strange fight. I mean, Robert Easter Jr., a lot of people very high on him, and I thought he was quite a solid fighter. He just didn't really look too good, to be honest. The fight itself, obviously, we know going in, Fortuna missed the weight, but he did come to fight, and we saw that very early on. He was looking to land the heavier shots, and I think he did land the heavier shots really throughout the period of the fight, really. Most of the heavy shots were from Fortuna. He seemed to carry the more power between the two fighters. Certainly in the early rounds, he was really landing some great shots. The referee took a point off Fortuna without warning him. I think that was in maybe the second round, something like that. It was really early, and it was, really premature. I really wasn't happy with that. I think that was bad officiating. Fortuna seemed to hurt Easter multiple times, especially in the early rounds as well. Easter just was not using his jab. He wasn't using his size. He kept throwing short left hooks instead of just jabbing with that good jab that I think he does possess at times. And when he was jabbing, the few times he was jabbing, there was just no conviction. He was just pushing out the jab. Obviously, we saw Adrian Broner yelling advice to Easter, telling him to jab from ringside. He wasn't listening to a word AB was saying. Fortuna, he showed a lot of elusiveness, to be honest. The speed was really working well for him. Easter, like I say, really poor judge of distance throughout the fight. It was really unbelievable. The mid-rounds, I'd say Fortuna seemed to lose the spring in his step a little bit, maybe tire a little bit. And in the 6th round, I remember that round, I noted that down. Easter landed a straight right, but he stood square on. He didn't bring the hand back to his shoulder. He threw the right, and he stood completely square on with the guy. Come back very lazy with his defence, and got caught by a big left hook, which stunned him momentarily. There was only a few seconds left in the round, though, so Fortuna wasn't able to capitalise on that. But that was a big moment of the fight. The movement seemed to be a real problem for Easter, though. He couldn't cut off the ring effectively. He was made to look quite ordinary. He was very scrappy, in the fight. I think generally the rounds 7, 8, 9 and 10 were quite scrappy. Round 11 there was some decent action, but you'd probably have to edge that round to Easter. Round 12 Fortuna found a bit of a second wind and definitely won that 12th. I wasn't really scoring it, to be honest, Ayaz, but in my gut feeling I felt that Fortuna edged it, really. I know that the point off early could have, it did play a factor in the cards, but I thought it was a really close fight. It could have really gone either way, but my gut feeling, I thought Fortuna won. Obviously, the other champions at 135 Ayaz, I say the other champions, I'm not quite sure what Mikey Garcia is doing at the moment, but again, he's around that weight. Lomachenko is just 5 pounds below that weight, and Linares obviously will be fighting this weekend. We'll talk about that later on in the show, but all those guys there, Linares, Garcia and Lomachenko, if you were advising Robert Easter Jr., I'm sure you'd say stay well away from those fights for the moment.
Yes, I'll agree with you on that.
Yeah. Let's talk about the main event. Errol Spence Jr. 22-0 going in, putting his IBF World Welterweight title on the line against Lamont Peterson. Very valiant effort there from Peterson. I know that we all didn't really give him much of a chance going in. I thought that maybe he could pose a few problems, but I just don't know. Not much really happened in the first round. It was. I mean, they were kind of feeling each other out a little bit. Not really giving either a chance, not really taking any risks. It was a little bit of a chess match. I suppose you'd probably give those rounds really to Spence. More so for the punch out, but not really that he was landing any telling shots at all. The first half of the second round, Lamont landed a couple of really encouraging right hands. Spence seemed to look a little bit like he was going to be in for a few problems, I suppose, over the course of the night. But like I say, it was only half a round that really lasted for. The second half of that round, Spence landed a big shot which seemed to trouble Lamont, and from that point onwards, Lamont was on the back foot pretty much for the rest of the fight, really. Spence was repeatedly going to the body early on. Peterson landed 2 left hooks high up on the head of Spence that Spence, tried to say were behind the head at one point, which I thought was laughable. Round 3 was a good round. Round 3 was a good round. I think there was a lot of back and forth there. Again, referee Harvey Dock warned Spence at least 3 or 4 times in the first 4 rounds for low blows. Round 4, Spence was quite comfortably winning the round for me. I think he won that quite easy, really. That was where he kind of seemed to take over, in all honesty. Spence's speed and power was really playing a big factor. Lamont was obviously down. Lamont Peterson was down in round 5. We all knew that Errol Spence, despite being very explosive, he doesn't really have the power of a Matisse. We were going to be very shocked if he got Lamont Peterson out of there quicker than Matisse did. But yeah, he had him down in round 5. Lamont didn't hold when he got up, which was really silly. I don't think his recuperation skills are really the best. And he got up. You'd imagine he should be trying to hold, but he was just trying to fight fire with fire way too often. He looked like an old man a little bit. I know that he's been extremely inactive, really. Again, like his brother, like I said last week, I made that point. He's been really inactive, and that seemed to play a part. Maybe he seemed to tire as the fight went on, but again, you've got to give Errol Spence credit for those body shots that he was landing, like I say. But no, Peterson, he looked flat-footed, almost like he was in quicksand. After 6 rounds, Spence was clearly ahead. It seemed like it was just one-way traffic, really. It was getting a bit hard to watch. Peterson's eye was swollen as well. Spence in the 7th round was displaying some showmanship, switching stances, landing shots, but nothing too big, really. And when Peterson went back to his corner at the end of round 7, his cornerman took a long, hard look at him and decided to pull him out. It seemed to be a difficult decision, really. Lamont Peterson's got some big balls, and, you got to give him credit, nothing but credit. But yeah, he's just simply past his best now. And Errol is obviously a very special fighter, obviously a fighter that we want to see in with the bigger names, really, at 147. And I tell you what, 147 is not short of big names. What did you make of that fight, Ayaz? Errol Spence, Lamont Peterson?
I told you from the start last week that Errol Spence was going to win the fight, and I told you, I said between round 10, but obviously happened in round 8. But well done to Errol Spence. And now he's just been told today that he's going to be fighting on June the 16th in Dallas, Texas.
The opponent's been not announced yet?
He's just been told, it's just been announced that he'll be fighting in Dallas, Texas for his mandatory.
Who is his mandatory? Do we know?
Unfortunately, no answer as of yet.
Yeah, but there must be the number 1 ranked guy. I'm going to have a little look. If I quickly have a little look here. The number 1 and 2 in the IBF are not ranked. Number 3 is Carlos Ocampo. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen there, to be honest. We can speculate. I know that there's something else that's happened, Ayaz, and we were going to save it for the news part of the show. But obviously, Bradley Skeet's fight on February 10th is no longer happening. So never say never. He's ranked with the IBF. I don't think stylistically it's the best matchup for him, but never say never. But yeah, that really is it for the reviewing. That's it for all the talking in part 1. So to speak from me, it's now time to welcome, just before we end part 1, our first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Golden Girl herself. And it isn't just a name that we give to her because she's a nice human being. It's because she simply has 2, not just 1, but 2 Olympic gold medals. It is, of course, Miss Claressa Shields. Claressa, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. So, Claressa, first things first, obviously you were originally introduced to boxing by your father, but it's been reported that your father deep down felt that boxing was more of a man's sport and wouldn't actually let you fully pursue it until you were 11, which is crazy to think that now you're only 22, and to think what you've achieved in just 11 years is phenomenal. Obviously winning your first Olympic gold medal in London in 2012 when you were only 17 years old, and then 4 years later winning again another gold medal in Rio in 2016, ultimately ending your amateur career with a record of 77 wins and just one loss. That loss, of course, coming to England's very own Savannah Marshall. So I want to ask you, Claressa, what does it feel like to be such, a phenomenal athlete in a sport really what doesn't always get the credit? But to do what you did in the amateurs is just unbelievable.
It feels good, you know what I mean? Like, I can't be complacent with all the, with all my achievements. I kind of got to keep looking forward, because now I'm a world champion. I've defended my titles. I'm the fastest woman to win a world title in the professionals, and it's like you really can't, really enjoy it. You know what I mean? You can enjoy it, but you have to keep looking forward, and that's why I think I continue to, accomplish bigger feats, because I don't ever think about, I did all this and this is great. I mean, it's great, and I'm proud of myself, but I still want to do more. I haven't got to the ultimate goal yet.
No, not at all. Like I say, only 11 years taking the game seriously, if you like, and what you've achieved thus far is absolutely unbelievable. Obviously, that one loss coming to Savannah Marshall, she's not long ago turned pro as well. Is that a rivalry that's continued into the pro ranks at all, or do you not really think about her? Is she not really on your radar at the moment?
You know what? Any female boxers on my radar, who has a big name, or of course somebody that beat me. Of course, I would like to get back in the ring with her and fight her and beat her, but it's not something that I think about. I thought about it a lot before, I won my second Olympics, but after winning, 2 Olympics, and then, the girl that beat you she's at every Olympic, she's at every world championship, and she loses the day before you, and you win and make it to the finals. It's like, it just shows you who's the better fighter, So I've defeated 3 or 4 girls who have beat Savannah Marshall already, abroad. So it's like, I really don't, it was a loss, but then again, it's just like, it still didn't stop me from doing what I was doing. My goal in 2012 wasn't to go undefeated. My goal was to win the Olympic gold medal, and that's what I did. Same thing 2016, and I only lost one time in my entire life. So, it was just a loss, and I don't really take it personal, not even more. And I would love to fight her again, of course, but, she's at a different weight class right now, I think. And, if she wants to make the fight happen as much as I do, then it'll happen. But it's not a make or break thing for me. Of course, I would love to avenge my loss, but if I don't, I'm still a better fighter and a greater fighter than her. It doesn't matter to me.
And obviously, you decided to turn pro in November of 2016, Claressa. Was it an easy or was it a tough decision to turn over and, become a professional?
It was hard because I know I could go back to 2020 and win another Olympic gold medal without even, trying hard. I know that I could do it. But then again, it's like turning pro, I didn't know what they offer. I didn't know if they would, give me my recognition, you know what I mean, and give me my respect. But I knew that without me, women's boxing wouldn't grow. So I had to make that decision, and I think I made a good decision.
I think so too, and I just want to quickly run through, the fights that you've had thus far in the pro ranks. Obviously, in your debut, you took on Franchon Cruz Dezern in what was her professional debut also. You dominated her over 4 rounds, winning every round, making your professional debut a successful one. Your next fight was against Silvia Sabados, which was for the NABF title, in which you recorded your first professional knockout and grabbed your first title. Of course, after that, you took on Sydney LeBlanc for the WBC silver title. You completely dominated her over 8 rounds. What was it like to go 8 rounds though at that point for you, Claressa? Was it something new? Was it something challenging?
It was definitely a test for myself. I've always put, people, just in general, we always put limits on our bodies. And I thought that my limit was, the most I ever had boxed was 6 rounds. So getting ready up in camp for an 8-rounder, it was like a lot of sparring, a lot of running. I had changed in my diet, and I wanted everything just to be perfect, and I didn't want to get tired during the last round, just in case if I had to go on. And I just remember doing the 8 rounds with Cindy LeBlanc. I didn't even think about the rounds. I just was like in there boxing. I was having fun, and then before I know it, it's the end of the fight.
No, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And obviously after that, you do something which is relatively unheard of. You fight for 2 world titles in just your 4th pro fight against the previously undefeated 16-0 Nikki Adler. You dominated her and then knocked her out in round 5. You ended 2017 by having 3 fights, winning all 3 fights and picking up 4 titles along the way, including 2 of them being world titles. It was a sensational year for you, 2017, Claressa. Is it right up there with 2012 and 2016, or is it bigger than that? Is it not as good as that? How did you see it all?
Winning a world title?
Yeah, just the whole year 2017. Would you say it was as big as 2012 and 2016?
I gotta say it was bigger because it's the future. You know what I mean? It's not the past anymore. So of course, I like for every year to get better, me to conquer a different feat. So I gotta say that 2017 was definitely better than 2016. Even though I love the Olympics and I love fighting world championships, it's still just like you got to keep looking forward. And there's always a level above everything. Like there's a level above being a world champion. And the level above that is being a world champion, but also being an international superstar, like on Anthony Joshua level. There's a level above being Anthony Joshua level, and that's the level of Muhammad Ali. And I think Muhammad Ali is the highest you can go when you think about as far as in the feats. And I'm just trying to keep setting goals to where I can be, as great as Muhammad Ali. I'll never be better. I'll always take second place to Muhammad Ali just because of my respect and love for him as a person and as a boxer. But it's just like there's always levels, and I feel like I up the level every year. So of course 2017, 2018, I plan on making it better than 2017. Yeah.
I absolutely love that answer. That's 100. I agree with every single word there. Muhammad Ali especially being a hero. Obviously, you've got the IBF title now and the WBC title now, Claressa, and I've actually dissected what they stand for. Okay, so the IBF, in my opinion, you've got that belt. It stands for I beat females, and the WBC stands for Women's Boxing equals Claressa. Okay. That's what I'm renaming it to. Women's Boxing equals Claressa. That's what I say. But anyways, in your last fight, obviously, which was just a couple of weeks ago now, you took on another undefeated fighter by the name of Tori Nelson. She was 17-0 with 3 draws. You beat her unanimously over 10 rounds. I didn't happen to see the fight, but I know that online, some of the boxing world, were saying that you looked a little bit average, that the fight was a little bit boring, but you did win every single round. It was a complete shutout, and it was also your first fight where you'd gone 10 rounds. And Tori Nelson, it was her 13th fight that she'd been 10 rounds. I suppose you just can't please everybody, Claressa.
I didn't think the fight was boring. I mean, when you got somebody, I just think that she was tough. And I think that, I didn't do anything spectacular that fight. I won. I dominated. I used my combinations. You know what I mean? I didn't drop her. But I almost dropped her. But, she was good at surviving. I didn't think the fight was boring.
Yeah,
even when I watched it was, I threw over 656 punches, and you tell me that's a boring fight to you, and I landed over 40%. So I guess you can watch the fight yourself. But I didn't see any articles where they said it was boring. But I've seen people, put their expectations on me of saying like I should have knocked her out, and I'm just like, I'm thinking to myself, you get in there and try to knock her out. She's ducking and she's holding. And you get your combinations off. As soon as you get off a good punch, here she is clinching you. So, I just did what I had to do. I didn't really try to,
Yeah, no, I'm really just talking about, I think it was one person that you responded to on Twitter. I haven't really seen anything else, but that one person I thought was a little bit harsh because, like I say, she'd been 10 rounds, not just had a fight scheduled for 10 rounds, she'd actually done 12 10-rounders before that fight. It was your first one, and you completely shut her out. So I think that you should be given credit for that, but it is what it is. Like I say, you can't really please everybody. What did you make of the fight itself? I know that you just briefly touched on it there, but, you've now taken 2 girls' unbeaten records in your last 2 fights. How did you assess your performance the other night, like I say, against Tori Nelson?
I think I should have used my brain more, you know what I mean? I feel like it was like I was sparring against a novice fighter when I was in there. So I didn't really have to do, much. I wasn't worried about getting hit with a big shot. I was more of just making sure I didn't get headbutted. I used my combinations and I used my jab, and it wasn't like, tricky. I think if I would have used my mind more and I would have, used some feints and would have feinted her and then threw my shots, because it's like she kind of braced up for everything that I was throwing. You know what I mean? So it was like she knew that I wasn't like if it was like I was lined up to go to the head, I was throwing punches to the head. I snuck down to the body on her a few times, but I think that I should have set up my punches more, kind of like Earl Spence did against Lamont Peterson. You know what I mean? Like make all my shots count. You know what I mean? Instead of, I throw combinations and they all land, but make them like I like severely land, severely do damage. And I think I started doing that. I was going to the body from the second to third round, but I think I really started to look at where I was, aiming my punches and being precise, like 6th, 7th, 8th round. And I think I should start doing that earlier, because I know the 6th round, when she came out for the 7th, she was really, really tired. She was weak. You know what I mean? But, she still was able to survive. I didn't hurt her enough, early on. So that's why she was able to last the whole 10 rounds. And I think I should have maybe slowed down more. But I gave myself an A, Yeah. I didn't, I didn't do anything superb, Well, beating her was superb. But like I said, I didn't use any of my tricks. I just kind of kept it like a 1-2-3 match, a couple uppercuts here and there. I just really kept it simple. And that was just because, I didn't want anything freaky to happen. I think like maybe the second or third round, I had thought she punched me, but it was actually a headbutt. And the headbutt kind of made me dizzy. And but I thought she hit me. And when I sat down in the corner, I asked my coach, and I know I was looking right at her when she didn't even throw a punch. She kind of just came in. And she headbutted the hell out of me, and I remember I felt kind of dizzy. So when I sat down in the corner, I talked to my coach. I asked him, and he it wasn't a punch she headbutted you, because I was about to say, damn, she got some punching power, but she didn't have punching power either. She didn't have any punching power. I really didn't have nothing to worry about. I just was like, I want to, use my combinations. But then too, when I was in camp for that 8 weeks, I think 8 weeks was too long for me, even though I had all that time off, because in the 8 weeks of camp, I got sick 3 times, once with food poisoning and once with the flu. So, I was still training while I was sick, you know what I mean? So when the fight actually got there, I just was like, I'm just sick of training, and my body, I had to make it have as much energy as it could, but I didn't feel as good as I felt for the Nikki Atlas fight.
No, that's fair enough. I think that's fair enough. You've been quite critical there of yourself in a fair way. I think that, that's very honest of you to say. I know that after the fight you were involved in a bit of a bizarre situation with a certain airline, Claressa. What actually happened there? It seemed to be crazy.
Oh, it was through United. We kind of got it taken care of, and I'm still waiting on a phone call. They already called and gave me a $250 voucher for United for the incident. But I still want to file my complaint on the lady, so I'm waiting on another phone call back from them, and I haven't received a call back yet. So, one part of the process is done, but I'm still waiting on the other. And if I don't get to file my complaint, I'll just have to go there in person and do it. You know what I mean? But I'm trying to let them handle it. But it was like just a lady just being very disrespectful, and after she was being disrespectful, she wouldn't give me her name. You know what I mean? And I was asking her name so I could file a complaint, and she wouldn't give me her name, told me I had to go to customer service. And this is over a bag that I had the bag tag to. She didn't want to give me the bag. I don't know if it was. I think she was just prejudiced, and she was black also. She was just she was a lighter version of black, but she had something against me from the first time she looked at me, and she just kind of, had an attitude from when I first gave her the bag tag, and I told her that, I was getting the bag, and she had an attitude from just from that point, and she was very disrespectful, and it was to a point she told me to get out of her office, and she was a taller woman and tried to push me out of her office, and I don't think she knew who I was, because
no, neither do I.
You're not gonna push me.
No,
she tried to slam the door, and I put my put my arm on the door, and I just was like, well, shut the door then. If you're so strong, shut the door. You know, and it just to let her know, like, I don't know who you think I am or what. You know, I don't know if you think I'm a little girl or what, you know, but she really thought she was going to, like, close this door with me right here. And I'm just like, you know, this is, and I mean, that's even on camera. Like, they had that on camera at the United Airlines, and I told them when I wanted to make my complaint, like, this is on camera. This lady really was trying to slam me in the door, like, but she couldn't, of course, because I'm super strong and everything. But it's still like she thought she was just going to bully me, you know, like just tell me to get out of her office. She's not giving me the bag and all this other mess. But, you know, hopefully I get a call back this week, because if I don't, I'm still going to call again, and I want to get her name. I want to file a complaint, and I want them to look into how she treated me, because if I would have fought her, I would have went to jail.
Yeah.
And she's gonna take me to court trying to sue me, you know what I mean? And it's like I'm a you know, international athlete, so I'm like, I feel like it should be looked at the same way for her. You know, she almost caused me to fight her. You know what I mean? I'm like, and if I would have fought her, I would have had to face my consequences. So she faced her consequences for me not, you know, fighting her, for her trying to cause something like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, did she not know who she was messing with? But it obviously seems like she didn't, because I don't think she'd have done it. But
I don't.
But no,
you know, I don't know. I think she probably realized once the situation was almost over. But I mean, this lady was just, I don't know. She had like some kind of attitude problem. But then the next day, when I sent my boyfriend to get the bag, he had spoke to another lady that was there about it, who worked for United, and she said, yeah, that lady gives everybody problems. So, like, she gives everybody problems. This is a known fact, and she still, you know, like, you guys just, like, kind of accept it, like, oh, that's just her. No, you don't just get to disrespect people. You don't just get to do that. No. So I really want to file my complaint. So I'm going to wait out a few more days, and if I don't get a call with them and I'm saying that they filed a complaint and they looked into it and they watched the video, then I'm going to, you know, do it myself.
Yeah, no, like I say, bit of a unfortunate situation there. Let's try to, I've got a couple more questions. I want to try to whiz through this, because I don't want you to be with me for too long. I know you've got things to do. I want to ask you also, Claressa, what usually goes on in a day in the life of Claressa Shields? What do you get up to in your spare time?
Oh, in my spare time, I go to Florida. I sleep. Really, I sleep a lot, to be honest. I love sleeping. You know, I go and visit my friends. I go out, you know. I go out to the club, dance a little bit, and I love karaoke. You know, karaoke is my thing.
Wow.
Like,
really?
I actually have this app called Smule on my phone, and it's like you can sing karaoke on there. You know, like they have all the songs, whatever you want to look up, you can look it up and you can sing it on there, and it actually records you. It got the words on your screen, and yeah. Wow. So karaoke is my thing, though. I really love karaoke, and you know, it's all over the board. I can sing some Rihanna, you know, I can sing some Alicia Keys. I even rap some rappers like Meek Mills and Young Jeezy.
Oh, wow. Well, I think next time we get you on, we've definitely got to get a little solo of Rihanna from you, for sure. Next time
Rihanna, work.
Oh, wow. We'll save that one for next time. I'm sure that'll be amazing.
Right.
So yeah, the one bad thing about women's boxing is that there isn't too many female fighters, and the big name fighters are mostly not in the same weight class most of the time. However, the biggest name fighter near your weight is the weight down from you, Christina Hammer. She's 22-0. She's a middleweight. Is she on your hit list at all at this stage, Claressa? Would you go down to middleweight for her?
Come on now. Of course I'm going down. You know, I don't want to cause these girls any trouble by them having to come up. I don't want anybody saying, "Oh, she was bigger than me. That's why she beat me." I'll go down. You know, just to make these fights happen. And you know, I don't know why. You know, Christina Hammer, she's not a bad fighter, and I'm not going to say she is, but I just know she's not better than me. You know, like I've seen the top girls that she fought against. You know, Sophie Ann Mathis to Callie Reese and all those girls, and it's just like I'm not them. You know, I have better skills and I'm better athletically. Like I'm not just like a tough face. You know what I mean? I'm not just a big, strong muscle. Like I actually know how to box, and I think that she's never been in there with somebody as athletic as her, and that actually has like boxing skills.
Yeah, no,
And I think that but she's a good boxer. I'm not gonna say she's bad, but I'm definitely gonna go down and fight her, and me and her are gonna fight this year.
Yeah,
mark my words.
I really am looking forward to that one. I really hope we do see an announcement at some point. And also, and forgive my ignorance if I've got this completely wrong, but is the super middleweight division a bit of a bad weight? Because if I'm not mistaken, I'm sure there's no light, heavy, or cruiserweight division in female boxing. Is that right?
I have no idea.
I don't think, because when I tried to look online,
I don't.
Yeah, when I tried to look on
I don't look
BoxRec,
above my weight. I just know the heaviest I get is 68. For me. There are girls that I think French on Cruz may be opening up the 175 division.
Yeah, it's strange because I looked online, Claressa, and when I had a look on BoxRec to see if there were any light heavyweights to see who was at that weight, there's none, and there's none at cruiserweight. The next weight up from super middleweight is actually heavyweight. I was thinking, wow, your options are a bit limited, unless you go down to middleweight. It's a bit of a, I don't know. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. Yeah, I want to ask you also, Claressa. Do you know at this stage when you'll next be out, when you'll next be fighting?
Yeah, my next fight is April 6th.
April 6th. Do you know where it is or who it's against? Can you say anything at this stage?
I don't even know yet. I don't know where it's at, and I don't know who it's against. I wish I knew, but we still waiting. It's kind of hard for me to get opponents. All these girls talk all this trash about, she's not that good. She's getting all this attention for no reason and all this bullcrap. But then when it comes to them, signing that contract and gloving up, they don't want to do it. So, it's actually hard for me to get opponents because of how great I am. I don't know any other girl that'll fight against, 2 undefeated fighters just in her first 5 fights. If you add up all the people that I've boxed against in just my 5 fights, if you put all their records together, it's definitely more wins than losses.
Yeah, you haven't fought.
It's like freaking.
You haven't fought a fighter who's got a losing record at all yet.
No, Sylvia Chavez was 15-8, and then if you want to add 16-0 plus 17-0, what is that? Freaking 33 right there. That's 33-0 right there. And then plus the 15 of Sylvia, that's 48. And then if you want to add the 4 from Sydney, what is that? 52. So I'm 52-8 if you up in the opponents that I've boxed against. That's insane. You know what I mean? That's not even. I've never even heard of it.
So whoever you do end up fighting on April 6th, it's going to be another win for you, I'm sure. Hopefully, if they can't get an opponent, hopefully they can maybe ring up United Airlines and get that woman in. That'd be great.
Nah, I'm good. She's the kind of lady who probably take me to court. She looks kind of crazy.
I want to ask you also, Claressa, just coming down to the last couple questions now. I like to ask this question to all of the fighters that we speak to from overseas. Who would you say is your favourite UK fighter? I know you're only young, you may not know some of the history, the history in UK boxing, but who's your favourite UK fighter that comes to mind straight away? It can be a fighter that's still fighting now, it can be a fighter that's retired years ago.
Well, I have to give it to Anthony Joshua right now.
Yeah.
I love and adore him. I think everybody knows that, though. I love and adore Anthony Joshua. That is like my celebrity boo.
Yeah, he is obviously doing all the right things at the moment, ticking all the boxes, and arguably one of the biggest names in the sport. So I think from a British standpoint, we're all very excited about him. And finally, Claressa, just before I let you go, have you got any kind of message or anything at all that you want to get across to the UK fans? If you want to say anything just before we let you go, take it away.
Well, just my message to the UK fans: you guys support Katie Taylor. You guys get behind Anthony Joshua. And I hope to one day come across the pond and fight over there for you guys. And hope you guys come out and see me. And even if you can't, travel to the U.S. and come and see me in person. And I love all my fans. Hope you guys, tweet me or whatever. And just know, like, even though you guys love Tyson Fury, I hate Tyson Fury, so I'm still going to keep doing that.
You can't say that on this show, Claressa. We're big fans of Tyson.
I can't stand Tyson Fury. He is just, I don't know, after he said, I don't like people that disrespect women, and then he's not even he's not a great fighter to me. He doesn't have any, like, skills. Am I tripping?
You're hurting my feelings now.
I'm all right, well, let me stop. Well, I got Tyson Fury. I definitely want to see him get in the ring with Anthony Joshua, or I think he got Klitschko at the end. Klitschko he probably didn't even train for Tyson, for Tyson Fury. He probably just thought, I can beat this guy. I went in there and lost and disappointed the whole freaking world, but whatever.
Okay, fair enough. Nice. It's definitely a fight we want to see Joshua and Fury at some point. Okay, listen, Claressa, it's been a real pleasure having you on this podcast. It really has. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with your fight coming up April 6th, and we'll catch up again soon, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the preview part, but as always, it's a bit of a routine now. Before we jump into that, we go over to Ayaz with the latest boxing news. Ayaz, it's been a busy week in boxing, hasn't it? Let's bring the listeners up to speed on the latest news. Take it away.
Oh yes, it is. Right, Michael Conlan will now be trained by Adam Booth.
Yeah, interesting link up, to be honest, Ayaz. Obviously, it's not the first fighter, to be promoted and to be fighting in one country and then to be trained and to live in another country. I suppose the hard thing about it is that the two countries are in different continents, so there's going to be a lot of travelling for Michael Conlan, but it's nothing that he's not used to. Let's have it right. He was a fantastic amateur. We're very excited about him in the pro ranks, and it's an interesting link-up. I think that Adam Booth's one of the best trainers in the UK. I've said it countless times. He's got quite a few prospects on his hands now, really. I mean, you've got Charlie Edwards there, you've got Josh Kelly, Ryan Burnett, I suppose, isn't no longer a prospect. Michael Conlan now, he's got a great stable of prospects, and yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's the right move for him or not, because he hasn't put a foot wrong yet, so you can't really say, well, his old trainer wasn't good enough and he needs to change. So, I mean, I wish him all the best. Like I say, phenomenal fighter, phenomenal trainer, so you'd imagine phenomenal results, really.
Abner Morris, Leo Santa Cruz fight will happen on June the 9th in LA.
Yeah, of course, it's a rematch. That featherweight division, really, when you look at it, Leo Santa Cruz, I'd certainly say, is the number one fighter in that weight class at the moment. And this fight with Mares, I mean, the first fight was a good fight. I remember that they both shared a bill a few months back against pretty pointless opponents, really. Everybody just wanted to see the rematch. I think that they tried to kind of build it just a tiny bit more. I'm not quite sure if it worked or not, but I mean, it's going to be a good fight. Mares is a solid fighter, It's a decent fight, but there's so many other names at featherweight in which I'd rather see those guys in there with Leo Santa Cruz. I'd like to see the Frampton third fight. Obviously, that's not going to be happening, if ever. Certainly not in the near future. And obviously, there's a bunch of other names. There's going to be one that we're going to be talking about in the news part, of course, which we're in, and I suppose we're going to be talking about in just a moment. But yeah, there's a few other fighters there really that I'd like to see Leo Santa Cruz tested with, but I don't think that Mares is good enough to beat him. But hopefully it makes for a good fight, because like I say, the first fight was a good one.
Lee Selby will defend his IBF belt against Josh Warrington on May 19th.
Yeah, that's the fight I was talking about. The two big named featherweights from the UK. Not just the only two. I'm sure there's another 2 or 3 or 4, Kid Galahad included. Yeah, it's a great fight. May 19th. It's a bit of a shame that we've got to wait that long, really. It's obviously just under 4 months away. Oh, May, sorry. Yeah, just under 4 months away. What am I talking about? So, yes, it's a shame that we've got to wait that long, but, we all knew that the fight was going to be happening. It's good that it's finally got over the line. Eddie Hearn, at one stage, had both fighters, and whether they were ready or not, the fight didn't get made. And Frank Warren's only just linked up with both fighters, really, and straight away the fight's been made. So credit to Frank Warren there. I don't think that it's, entirely Eddie Hearn's fault. I think that there was a bit of it where Josh Warrington's team just felt he wasn't ready. I mean, that's what we're led to believe, but no, it's a good fight. It's a good fight. I think that it's 100% going points. You know, if anybody's thinking about betting on a knockout, save your money. It's 100% going points. And I think Lee Selby wins that fight pretty comfortably. But I'm looking forward to it. May the best man win. They seem to both be good guys. Obviously, we're a little bit biased. Lee Selby is a big friend of the show. So, yeah, I'm excited for both guys. But I'm really excited for Selby, really, because, you know, it seems like a long, long time since he's been in there with a big name. He's been taking on all these challenging fighters. You know, you can't knock Selby, but he hasn't really had that big British bust-up since, well, when you try and think about it, I suppose, since probably Stephen Smith, which seems like a long, long time ago now. So, yeah, I'm happy for Lee Selby. It's long overdue, a big fight for him.
Frank Warren's February 10th card has been cancelled.
Yeah, that was the bill, like I say, that Bradley Skeet was going to be fighting on. Zolani Tete was going to be defending his world title. He had to pull out with an injury. It wasn't so much that Bradley Skeet was a big part of why the show's not going ahead. From my understanding, after Zolani Tete got injured, the show was still gonna happen, but Daniel Dubois has been ill in the past couple weeks and he's not been able to properly train, so that is the reason. So, you know, Zolani Tete's injury paired with Daniel Dubois' illness has caused Frank Warren to call the show off completely. I don't think they were having a very easy time of also getting Bradley Skeet the right opponent for that day as well. So it's a shame, really, but yeah, it goes to show how much Frank Warren's got invested in Daniel Dubois to pull a show down for a guy who's only like 5-0 or 6-0, Daniel Dubois. So just goes to show how important he is for Frank Warren's future plans. I'm a bit annoyed, really, because I was really looking forward to going to that one, but he has put a card on I think it's at York Hall. Yeah, it is at York Hall on the 24th of February. So 2 weeks after that date, it's going to be probably a bit of a prospect show. So I don't think you'll have Bradley Skeet on there, but it should be a few prospects. I know that Archie Sharp will probably be on that bill because Archie Sharp, funny enough, his baby, his girlfriend is heavily pregnant, and their baby is due on February 10th. So for him to fight on that day, I said to him, you know, like, obviously I speak to him quite a bit, you know, not on the show, and he was kind of like, you know, I've got to fight on February 10th, but the baby's due, it's going to all be mad, and I'm pleased for him, he's got an extra 2 weeks, so hopefully the baby comes on time and everything's well, and, you know, he can fight 2 weeks later. Hopefully he gets a decent amount of sleep in before that fight, but yeah, I'm sure he'll be on that bill amongst some of Frank Warren's other top prospects, so I'm excited for that one. I love a York Hall card, everybody knows that.
Finally, Adrian Broner will face Omar Figueroa, and on the undercard, Gervonta Davis will be fighting.
Yeah, wow, that's a cracking fight, Ayaz. I wasn't even aware of that. Omar Figueroa, obviously, he's been on the show a couple of times. I really like Omar Figueroa, and he's very underrated because he had that spell out of the ring where everybody kind of forgot him. You know, he beat Ricky Burns fairly easy in Texas when I think he had a broken hand, and he was just, you know, after that, he kind of disappeared for quite a while. It's going to be interesting to see what weight it's at. Does it say what weight it's at all, Ayaz?
Unfortunately not.
Yeah, because it was funny because obviously Figueroa, really and truly, when Figueroa was I was going to say winning fights, but he's still undefeated. But when he was really on a roll, you know, he was fighting at lightweight, and then he moved up to 140 for Ricky Burns, and then he really ballooned up when he took on Antonio DeMarco. He actually weighed in at a junior middleweight. You know, he was 151 pounds for that one, and then his last fight against Robert Guerrero, in which he knocked him out in the third round, which was unbelievable. It really was a brilliant performance, especially coming off of, you know, like over a year and a half out the ring, and he got in there against Guerrero, but obviously that fight was at 147, so it'll be interesting to see if this is at 140 or 147. I'm going to send him a text. Right now, actually. Stay right there. This could be exclusive. He might not get back to me. Hang on, stay there. Omar Figueroa. Omar, congratulations on the Broner fight. I know you've wanted it for a long time. What weight will it be at? Right, there you go. That's an exclusive. I've sent him that one, so hopefully he gets back to me. Omar's a nice guy. But yeah, like I say, undefeated fighter, very skillful fighter. He's 27-0 now with 1 draw. Adrian Broner, I mean, you just don't know what version of him's going to show up. I feel like we've said that so many times. I mean, you know, when he's on his job, he's phenomenal. He really is. Whether you like him or not, he's a really, really good fighter when he's on his job. And we saw glimpses of that when he took on Mikey Garcia in the later part of the fight. And Mikey Garcia said to me a couple of weeks ago that, you know, Broner can really punch as well. So, it's interesting. I think what weight is at really makes a big difference to this. I think if it's at welterweight, I think that Omar's probably got the edge, because I think naturally Omar's, you know, I think he kills himself to get down in weight a little bit, because he certainly balloons up. It's either that or he's just not the hardest trainer out there. But then again, neither's Broner. So it's a great fight. But Omar Figueroa's wanted that Broner fight for a long, long time. And this is his chance. And I tell you what, if he beats Broner, that's a huge name for his resume. His resume has got some great names on it, but I think it's probably lacking that one standout name. And this could be it for him. But saying that, you know, like I say, if Broner switches it on, Broner's a brilliant fighter. Broner would definitely have to be the favourite in that fight. But boy, oh boy, I really give both men credit for taking the fight, and I really hope that Omar can get it done for sure. Oh, and also, Gervonta Davis on the undercard, yeah. It would be good to see him fight again. Again, his last fight on that Mayweather-McGregor undercard, when he missed the weight, he seemed to not quite know where he was. It was really weird. He kept gazing up in the sky. It was bizarre, but he got the job done. I'd like to see him in there with somebody that we know, not just a guy who had a bunch of wins, you know, against complete journeymen. So, yeah, I'd like to see him tested, and, you know, he's a great fighter as well. And it's funny that he's on Adrian Broner's undercard, because those guys absolutely can't stand each other. So, yeah, I mean, we'll have to reach out to Gervonta's people, hopefully get him on the show, and Omar Figueroa the same, I'm sure.
That's it for the news.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayaz. Right, diving into the preview part of the show now. Let's try to whiz through this. We're going to start with a card that's happening over in the Crown Plaza Hotel, Glasgow. One fight to mention over here. Gary Cornish, 24-2. He takes on David Howe, 14-6. David Howe's very limited. Obviously, we see him get knocked out by Dave Allen. Gary Cornish, we saw him get absolutely sparked out by Anthony Joshua. I think I was at that fight, to be honest. Gary Cornish is 6'7". David Howe is 6'8". So it's really two giants in there, you know, absolutely huge guys. It's a 6-rounder. The funny thing about this is David Howe has already planned a fight about 2 weeks after, so I think that's quite brave of him. But yeah, all the best to both guys. I don't really have a horse in that race either, but yeah, two big guys that, I mean, I don't want to be harsh on Cornish. I think he's okay, but yeah, I think he's probably the favourite, which is why I think it's quite brave from David Howe planning a future fight. Moving over now to the Grey Eagle Resort and Casino in Alberta, Canada. One fight to mention here. Former world champion Zab Judah, 43-9, takes on Noel Rincon, who is 21-13 with 1 draw. Zab Judah has been out the ring for a year. This is like his 53rd fight, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, Zab Judah certainly past his best now. I'm not quite sure what he has to prove, really. He's been around the block a long time, obviously turning pro in 1996. So he's been a pro for coming up 22 years, which is staggering. He's probably one of the oldest, well, I say one of the oldest. I mean, he's been around a long time, but yeah, for in terms of being a pro the longest, he's certainly right up there. This guy he's taking on, though, I don't really see him as a threat, to be honest. He lost his last fight by knockout. He's lost quite a few fights by knockout, and they're all to names that we've never heard of. He's been knocked out 9 times in 13 losses, so I don't really see much danger there. Should be a relatively easy win for Zab Judah. Moving over now to the Arena Riga in Riga, Latvia. This is, of course, a World Boxing Super Series semi-final fight here, Ayaz. Firstly, on the undercard, Sweden's very own Otto Wallin. He's a heavyweight. He's 18-0. He's in an 8-rounder against a guy who's 6-5. Bit of a poor opponent there, but it is what it is. Also on this bill, the main event, I'm just going to talk about the main event. Screw the co-main event, it's not a great one. 23-0 Maris Bradis in his hometown fights Alexander Usyk 13-0. I'm very surprised that this one's happening in Latvia. Bradis puts his WBC World Cruiserweight title on the line, and Usyk puts his WBO World Cruiserweight title on the line. Of course, a 12-round fight, Ayaz. Both men undefeated. It's a great fight first and foremost, but how do you see that fight playing out, Bradis and Usyk?
I think it's gonna be a very good fight, but I'm gonna go with Usyk to win on points because I think Usyk's favourite to win this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, he is the favourite to win the tournament. Bradis is obviously a guy who can punch, so can Usyk. But Bradis, I don't know, I think out of the 4 remaining contenders, I'd probably have to stick him last, stick him fourth, really. I know that styles make fights, but something about Bradis, he's not the most eye-catching fighter, and I mean that in the most respectable way possible. That win against Perez wasn't a great fight, and it sticks in my mind as one of the poor fights of the World Boxing Super Series tournament, and not just the cruiserweight one, but also including the super middleweight tournament. That fight against Perez was not a great fight, and obviously the fight before that when he beat Huck, that was that wasn't a great fight either, really. Let's be honest, Huck is way past it. And yeah, his 2 last fights, Bradis, have both gone the distance. So when he stepped it up, he's gone the distance. He hasn't managed to get the knockout. And Usyk, like I say, really skilled guy. I know he's been training with Isaac Chamberlain, which I think is fantastic. And once again, in his last fight, he took on Marco Huck and he knocked him out in 10 rounds, So yeah, I definitely have to, not just on their recent performances, but just on fighter basis, I definitely think Usyk will win this fight, obviously. I can't really see Bradis getting stopped. I think Bradis is a very tough character. The good thing about this is, obviously, in Bradis' last fight, he took on Mike Perez. Mike Perez is a southpaw. So that is brilliant preparation to take on the best southpaw in the division in Usyk. So that's one very clever thing there for Bradis. Maybe he had that in mind when he was, being seeded and choosing the other fighters. That would be a very clever. Al Siesta, I'm sure, is behind that. His manager, very witty, very clever guy. So yeah, I like the fight. It's a fantastic fight. Obviously, it's going to be on ITV pay-per-view or ITV box office, I think it's called, but it's free, which is fantastic for UK fight fans. I'm looking forward to the fight. It's fantastic that they're both getting in the ring. It's fantastic that it's free. Credit to the Sauerlands and the rest of it. And may the best man win. But for me, I definitely think a Usyk points win. I'm going with you. I don't see a knockout, despite both guys most of the time finishing fights by knockout. I think Bradis is very tough. So yeah, it should be interesting, I hope. And yeah, I got Usyk winning that one. Moving over to the States, this one's at the Forum in Inglewood, California, USA. It's going to be on HBO. I think it's also on Box Nation. Yeah, I think it's also on Box Nation. So it's going to probably be a 2 a.m. job, Saturday night / Sunday morning. It's not a great card, really, this one, in all honesty. 2 good fights on it, I suppose, but the actual full depth of the bill isn't a great one. But let's just talk about the co-main event. Lucas Martin Matisse, 38-4, takes on Tuwa Kiram, who's 38-0. I remember the other week saying to Mikey Garcia that I think he's like 3rd in terms of the longest win streak in boxing. Well, this guy is actually 38-0, so I was wrong there. But this guy, I think, Ayaz, if you took on all 38 of this man's opponents, you'd probably be 38-0 as well. He hasn't fought out of his nation. It's for the vacant WBA World Welterweight title. Matisse, since he's come back, I know that before he went away, he was a big puncher. Since he's come back, he's still a big puncher. This guy, like I say, who he's taking on, he hasn't really fought out of his country, if I'm not mistaken. He's from Thailand. I think a couple fights ago, he took on a guy that was making his debut. He's one of those guys, really, with a padded record from Asia. We see many of them, and when it really matters, when they put it all on the line in a big fight, they get beaten quite easily. Matisse surely gets the knockout here for me, Ayaz, even though it's at 147.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I reckon Matisse will win it as well. I reckon Matisse will finally win that world title.
I'm just looking at this guy's record also, and he's only weighed in. I say he's only weighed in. He's only displaying his weights for 2 of his 38 fights, and it seems like he is a natural 147 fighter. So that is one slight thing that I suppose you could give him. There's nothing about his height on here. There's nothing about his reach. The only thing I can tell you is he's 25. So he's had a lot of fights for being 25. He's got 28 knockouts in those 38 wins. Obviously, Lucas Matisse, 35 years of age, but we know his power really is legit. He's put so many fighters away, including Lamont Peterson, as we mentioned earlier. But yeah, I can't tell you too much about the other guy, so there's not too much to break down really, just that I think Matisse will knock him out and become the world champion at welterweight, and I think he deserves it. I really like Matisse. Great fighter, always in exciting fights. Now the main event and the final fight to talk about here, Ayaz. Jorge Linares, 43-3, defending his WBA world lightweight title against Mercito Gesta, who's 31-1 with 2 draws. Mikey Garcia did say, once again, I hate to keep bringing him up, but yeah, he did say that after this fight, him and Linares will be fighting. They're going to have one fight, you know, before fighting each other. Obviously, Mikey Garcia's fight, I think, was scheduled for February 10th. It's now been pushed back to March the 10th because his opponent was slightly injured. I don't think it was anything serious. So, yeah, that's been delayed for a month. So that's now happening March the 10th. But Mikey Garcia said after they both fight their opponents that they'll both be fighting at some point, I think, in the summer. So, yeah. This is, I mean, it's a bit of a gimme fight, I feel. I mean, Gesta, he's a Filipino guy, 31-1, like I say, 17 knockouts. The one loss, he wasn't stopped. It was to Miguel Vasquez, who just got knocked out by Josh Taylor, but it was just over 5 years ago now, and it wasn't, well, I'm looking at it now, it wasn't a close fight. He pretty much lost almost every round to Vasquez, but Vasquez was a good fighter 5 years ago, so I don't know, he seems like he hasn't really been too active. He's had the 6 fights since then, one of them being a draw to Carlos Molina. And that Carlos Molina's not the former world champion one. That's the one that lost to Amir Khan that time. I think in his first fight with Virgil Hunter, if I'm not mistaken. Something like that. But yeah, that Carlos Molina's not the good one. He got a split draw with him. I'm looking really, he hasn't really done anything else, to be honest, since then, so you definitely have to favour Linares anyway, but I'm just looking at his resume and it doesn't look like a great one either. So like I say, not a great card really. I can see Linares probably stopping this guy. He is a southpaw though, that's all I can say. But like I say, the other thing that we shall mention is that in Linares' last fight, he took on Luke Campbell, who's obviously a southpaw. So very strategic moves from the managers, I think, that we've exposed a little bit on this week's show. Linares wins that one for you, Ayaz, surely.
I think Linares stops him.
Yeah, and again, we're not really analysing this guy too deeply because again, there's not too much to analyse here. The standout names on his resume have beaten him, so it is what it is there. But yeah, should be a relatively easy win for Linares. Just get this fight out of the way. Get Mikey Garcia's fight out of the way as well, which is a much better fight than this one, by the way. Sergei Lipinets, undefeated world champion. And hopefully both guys come through unscathed and both guys get it on in the summer, because that's the real fight we want to see, Ayaz, isn't it really? Linares and Garcia, monster fight. Who would you favour in that fight, by the way?
Mikey Garcia.
Knockout or points at this stage? Obviously, we'll talk about it closer to time.
Points.
Points. Okay, interesting. All right, that really wraps up all the talking. We've done the reviewing, we did the news, we did the previewing, we brought you in one female, which was our first ever female on the show, and it's now time to bring you in our second ever female on the show. It's a female-themed show. It's now time, just before we wrap up the show, to welcome guest number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the CEO of boxing promotional outfit known as Main Events. It's, of course, Mrs. Kathy Duva. Kathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm very good. Hey, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So, Kathy, I think it's important to start this interview with a little bit of a backstory for those that may not know the journey that Main Events has been on since it started out. I know that it's been a long road. I know that things have been far from easy, and that everybody's put in a great deal of work, you know, for the company to achieve what it has achieved and to be where it is today. Please, Kathy, just give us a rundown of when the company first started out and, you know, the main events that have occurred in Main Events themselves.
Oh Lord, it's been a long time. We're this year in May we will mark our 40th anniversary in business. So that's 4-0, and we've had an awful lot of really big fights in that time span. Our first big fight was the Leonard Hearns fight. It was pretty tough to top that. Over the years, though, we've had some other big ones. The prior Arguello rematch. We've had, you know, Evander Holyfield, large part of his career. Most, I guess, the ones that really stood out in his were the three fights with Riddick Bowe. We've had Lennox Lewis's, you know, all but I believe one of the fights in his career. So there were some terrific matches, including his fight with Mike Tyson, and his fights with Evander Holyfield, and on and on. And then, of course, Fernando Vargas, who had some tremendous fights with De La Hoya and Trinidad, Arturo Gatti. The trilogy with Ward and Gatti, of course, goes down in history as probably the three best, certainly the three best non-title fights that ever happened. And now, you know, we've moved through another, you know, to another generation of fighters. You know, with Sergey Kovalev right now, who, of course, one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world, is fighting with us, and you know, we've got quite a few young prospects who I hope to be able to tell you in a few years that have been in fights just as big.
And you just mentioned there, and I wasn't aware of this, you mentioned there about Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield. So was it your card that the Fan Man came into that crazy night? Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
I was sitting at ringside, and I was literally in the first row, and my late husband was sitting to my right, and I saw this guy coming toward the ring, and I'm saying, there's a guy going to fly in the ring, and he's going to me, what are you talking about? Shut up, I'm watching the fight. No, and I kept poking him. No, there's a guy. He's flying into the ring. And he's like, no. What are you talking about? All of a sudden, there he was in the ring. That was quite a night.
Yeah, to say the least. Obviously, you mentioned there your late husband, Dan Duva, obviously passed away in 1996, and since then, like I say, you've really stepped up to become the main, I want to say the main man, but really the main lady, of course, at Main Events. Main Events, as you say there, it's been involved with many fighters, like you mentioned there, Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis, Pernell Whitaker. I want to ask you this question, Kathy. When would you say, what sort of jumps in your head when I ask you this question? What would you say was like the first kind of fight, or maybe first scenario that you were in where you thought, wow, these fighters that we've got on our books, you know, it's really down to me. I'm really solely responsible for, you know, for the fruition of these great fighters' careers.
Well, really, the truth is, the first time I realized it was on me alone was when we were making in 2002, when we were making the rematch between Gatti and Ward. That's the first. Because up until then, I had people who were here working, you know, running the company, whether it was my husband's brother or a few other people that we hired to come in here and do things. Those relationships didn't work out, and in the end, the first day that I was truly in charge of this company happened in I guess it was in May of 2002, just before the Lewis Tyson fight. And of course, that was also the same time that Gatti fought Ward the first time. So the first deal I ever really went in and negotiated myself was for Gatti Ward too. And the rest of Gatti's career, which was amazing. We did 9 sellout shows in a row in Atlantic City. And that was kind of the first time that, you know, it was really me, and I had to go out and do it myself. And I felt that, you know, oh shit, you know, I got to do this right. This is on me. And excellent. I'm very proud of what we did with him. And since then, you know, Tomas Ademek's career and certainly Sergey Kovalev's career have been, you know, things that were, when I say me with the staff that's here right now, because without them, you know, I couldn't do it. They were all tremendous.
No, brilliant, brilliant. I want to ask you this question also, just before we kind of get on to the more recent things. What would you say is your best memory so far as a boxing promoter?
Oh, wow. I don't know if I could pick one, but the night that Holyfield beat Douglas certainly stands out. We won the heavyweight title. That was very big, especially, with the third round knockout, the way he did it, exactly the way George Benton told my husband and I on the way to the arena that he would do it. Said he's going to wait for that uppercut, he's going to take a step back, he's going to throw the right hand, he's going to knock him out. That's just what he did. That night, and one that's kind of, I guess, surprising, but it was I think it was the second time we had ever won a world title. We had a fighter years ago named Rocky Lockridge. He knocked out Roger Mayweather in the first round of their fight, in a fight that Rocky was given no chance to win. And that was kind of spectacular, too. So those two kind of jumped to mind. Those ones they didn't expect you to win that way.
Yeah, no, of course. And getting on to what's kind of happening, at this present stage, and maybe a little bit of the recent past. Obviously, main events have signed Sergey Kovalev. That happened back in 2012. Kovalev has gone on to become one of the best fighters in the sport. Was it ever a bit of a risk in the beginning with Sergey, not really knowing if he could, capture the imagination of the American audience?
I had to tell you, from the moment I laid eyes on him, there's not been a moment of doubt in my mind. He has something special, and I saw it that night. His manager had approached us and said, just put him on a card and pay him whatever you want and put in any opponent you want, because I've taken him to every promoter in the United States and Canada, and nobody wants to sign him, and I know in my heart he can win. And that was, of course, Ayaz, who has now been, for the second year in a row, been named the manager of the year by the Boxing Writers Association. And I guess I had met him a few months earlier, and he seemed like such a nice man and so sincere, and we had that great platform at that point with the NBC shows, so we were able to take a chance on some people. It was a great luxury to have the platform to do that. We stuck him on an undercard against a guy, Darnell Boone, who he'd had some trouble with previously, got a disputed close decision against him, I guess. And I just looked at his eyes, and I told this story before, but I saw Ray Leonard, the eyes of Ray Leonard on the night that he beat Thomas Hearns. I saw him in the ring that night. I looked up, and this again early in my career, the first time I was really that close to a great fighter. I saw, it's weird, Sergey's blue eyes, Ray has brown, they look nothing the same, but I saw, that's all I could think about was Ray Leonard's eyes. And I watched him smoke Darnell Boone, and I was like running up to Ayaz. Yeah, sure, we'll sign your fighter, no problem. I just said, this is it, this is the guy. And then to confirm my belief, because I would always defer to his decision, Russell Peltz came running up to me and said, "Oh my God, that guy! Who wouldn't you put him in with?" And I went, I couldn't think of a single guy. So let's do it. So I don't think he was a risk at all.
No, that's great. That's great. I mean, obviously, it's been a fantastic thing, and he's a guy that Kovalev, especially, he's a guy that you personally have got a great relationship with. It's clear to see that there's something very special there, something that most promoters and fighters do not have. What makes the relationship such a good one between you both, Kathy?
Yeah, I don't know. He very early on, at one point, he referred to me as his mother and Ayaz as his father. I think he sees it that way. I took a chance on him when nobody else would. And you know what? He came along when I needed him. I needed to find someone. We had that series. We had an opportunity to go out and build somebody. We had to find the guy. And I think we were just somehow destined to meet each other, because I think we were exactly what the other needed at the moment we met. And thus far, knock wood, he has proven that he is what I thought I saw that night, which is a guy who really has the makings of an extraordinary fighter, a great fighter. Made it to the top of the pound for pound list, still on it, and his career is far from over at this point. I think we're going to see a lot more excitement and have a lot more fun with Sergey.
Yeah, we certainly hope so. And I must say this, Kathy, again, we know that boxing is a game where there's so many fantastic stories, so many crazy stories. Obviously, we mentioned the fan man a little bit earlier, but one of my favourite stories was actually one that you told. It was one where Kovalev had this street fight back in Russia when it was snowing. And I have tried to tell people about this, and I cannot tell the story as good as what you told it. Please retell that beautiful story.
Oh God, if I can remember now. Sergey tells us that he was his car broke down right across the street from a shop that would be similar to what we would call a bodega here in the United States, a little shop that sold necessities. He went over to ask for help, and he was 18 years old, so he went over to ask for help, and for some reason the guy in the shop wasn't able to help him. He saw somebody walk out of the shop and walk toward his car. Sergey went up to his car and said he needed help, and the guy, wanted to fight him. So Sergey, he was arguing with him or whatever, and the guy, came and approached him, and Sergey, beat him up. So he goes back to trying to get his car, fixed. Something was wrong with the tire, I guess. And the guy comes back, and now he's got a bunch of his friends with him. And he talks about how these guys come at him one after the other. He said, and I think to myself, like, either I have to run or I have to stay and fight. And oh my God, there's 8, 10 guys. They're big guys, and so he decides that he's going to stay and fight. So he starts fighting, and he knocks one guy out, and the next guy, and the next guy. As they're coming at him, he said, at the last moment, he had a bat in his car, and he went to grab it, and he decided at the last moment, no, I can't do that. I could hurt him badly, and so the last couple guys that he hadn't beat up walked away, and another guy comes across the street now from this shop, and he says to him, what happened? And Sergey just said, I need help with my car. And he goes, what happened to these people? And he just said, they went to sleep. And he goes, and the guy looks at me and says, well, I think I'm going to help you because I don't want you to beat me up. So he tells it way better than that. And there's a lot.
That is the
but
best
he
story.
He really did this. He beat up a bunch of guys in the snow, and he left them all there sleeping.
They were all sleeping in the snow, yeah.
Left them sleeping in the snow. He did get out of there, though.
No, that is one of the best stories. I mean, there's only a little, real short list of fighters who could tell you that story and you'd believe it. And Kovalev is that guy. I believe him 100%. And that's the best story ever. But anyways, tell our listeners, if you can, Kathy, about some of your other fighters. You mentioned there the prospects. I know that you can quite easily go on the Main Events website and you can look at the full roster there. But, just some of the names, if you could reel some off. I know you've got Cassius Chaney, a really exciting heavyweight prospect. Who are some of the other guys?
Well, we've got a guy named Vaughn Alexander, who's the brother of Devin Alexander. He's a middleweight. He's exciting. He's going to be fighting on Sergey's undercard on the 3rd of March at Madison Square Garden in New York. We've also got Frank Galarza has signed with us recently. He's a welterweight, big favorite in New York, sells a lot of tickets for us there. Again, very exciting style. Anybody who comes out to see. In fact, his fight, which was off TV when Sergey fought there in November, was one of the best fights of the night. We have a kid, Matyar Askayev from Kazakhstan, who will be fighting on March 3rd. Also, Mirim Nursultanov, also from Kazakhstan, two tremendous fighters. Mirim is a middleweight. Matyar's, I think, fighting around 140. Both exciting and fun guys to watch. We have Backroom Murtasalayev, who is also signed with Crusher Promotions, another junior middleweight with a lot of upside, a lot of potential. He'll be on that show. We've got LaShawn Rodriguez, who's a kid from Brooklyn, and also Ismael Villarreal, who is another tremendous fighter that just turned pro in our last show in November. Both of them young and with big futures. And who else? We have an awful lot of fights. I think there's 12 fights on the card that night because we just had so many guys that were, it's their first fight of the year, so everybody's getting their chance. They're all going to be, they're all going to be tested. They're all going to be in good fights. We've also got a guy. Turning pro on the card, Marquise Williams, who's a terrific heavyweight, just fought in the U.S. national tournament, and he's going to be turning pro as a cruiserweight, and he will be on that card as well. So I think that's pretty much the roster at the moment. And, of course, Dimitri Bivol, who is with World of Boxing and who we are working with, will be fighting Sullivan Barrera, who is the last member of our our stable, I guess you could say, in the co-feature, which is another tremendous pick'em fight in the light heavyweight division. Dimitri being a world titleist, WBA world titleist from St. Petersburg, and Sullivan challenging him, Sullivan from Miami, Florida. Sergey, of course, is fighting Igor Mikhalkin, and also from Russia, and I think we're going to have ourselves, a great card top to bottom, and, all of our prospects are on it. So if you want to see main events roster, come out and watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Some really, really great fighters that you've named there. You mentioned your next event being March the 3rd at Madison Square Gardens. Obviously, Kovalev will top the bill, like you say, against McCulkin. But the chief support fight, the fight that you mentioned, Bivol and Barrera, that is a brilliant fight. So, congratulations on making that, because that's an excellent fight. I didn't know that you were involved with Bivol. I knew that you were somewhat involved with Barrera. What's who's sort of more a main events fight? I'm a little bit confused with that one.
Well, no, Barrera's been here. I mean, he's been here a long time, and he's our fighter, of course. Bivol is with World of Boxing, and we were just partnering with them on this show for this fight. And if things work out and he's successful, perhaps they'll continue to partner with us. But we have a good relationship with his promoter, and not just with Dimitri, but there's been talk about working with them on some other fighters here in the U.S. But okay. Sullivan's our fighter, and he's been here. He's been with main events for quite a while. I actually signed him twice. Once earlier in his career, and when he was with another promoter, and that relationship blew up with the other promoter, and so he was no longer here, and then he came back. So he fought in the first television fight on that NBC series where Sergey Kovalev fought back in 2010 or 2012 rather. 12. He was on the first television fight on that series on NBC. So Sullivan has been with us on and off for quite some time. Okay. He's quite colorful and exciting, and as anybody who's seen him fight can attest, it's always an exciting fight with Sullivan, and he brings it, and he's really excited about this fight, and he wants, this is his first shot at a world title. He did fight Andre Ward, but no title was at stake. So this is it, and this is a big chance, and he's going to be there. And Bivol, tremendously talented fighter, much less experienced at 12-0 with 10 KOs, but perhaps a bigger amateur career than Sullivan had. So it's a really, really interesting matchup, and it's a real pick'em fight, and it's going to be a great night. We're really excited about it.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think Barrera's carrying a lot of great momentum into that fight as well. I want to also ask you, Kathy, is Glazkov still part of the main events stable? And if so, what has actually happened to him? He's disappeared.
Well, the injury that he suffered was pretty catastrophic. I don't think they really appreciated it that night, because somehow this guy managed to walk from the ring back to the locker room, and I will never know how. Without limping, but he tore his ACL, he tore his meniscus, he dislocated his knee. This is the kind of injury that sometimes causes people to lose their part of their leg because of the cut off of the blood supply during that dislocation. I think he managed to push his knee back in place on his own, which is probably how he was able to walk back to the locker room. But it was a really bad injury. So he's had surgery on it now multiple times, and we were just in touch with him the other day, in fact. So, he's certainly ours in our hearts, but I don't know, when and if he will be able to return to the ring.
Yeah, it's a great shame. Just to remind the listeners, Vyacheslav Glaskov's the guy that was fighting Charles Martin for the vacant IBF World Heavyweight title in that fight that arguably he was winning up until the freak injury occurred, just to remind people there. I want to ask you, Kathy, about 5 quick-fire questions, if I can. Ones where if you just give me like a one-sentence answer, if I throw a few at you, this might be quite fun. Maybe not. We'll have to wait and see. Who would you say is your or has been your favourite fighter to work with, past and present?
Oh, wow. I don't like to talk about present, but if I do, I guess it's Sergey at this point. But in the past, it's Gaddy or Whitaker, and I can't pick one. Love them both.
That's fine. And who are the easiest major or rival promoter to deal with?
Oh, most of them are easy, but I would say at this point it would be Golden Boy.
Okay. And the best fight that you've ever been involved in?
The best fight?
Best fight.
Oh, God. I guess it's the Gaddy Ward. Yeah. What, 1 or 2? I guess I'd say 2 because Gaddy won.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. My next question was going to be the best win that you've ever been involved in, but that may be the exact same answer. Perhaps,
or again, back to that Holyfield Douglas, because that changed everything. It changed our lives. That was the thing that set our company apart and really sent us on the way to becoming the major promoters. And the nicest / friendliest boxer outside of the ring that you've ever met? Oh, God. Probably Mark Breland. Okay. Interesting Mark choice. Breland, yeah. Yeah, and that's, there's lots of really nice fighters, but gun to my head at this moment, I would say that's the first one that comes to mind. He's one of the nicest human beings God ever put on the earth. Yeah. Not just as fighter, one of the nicest people. Yeah, so he's for sure. To be in that category. Just coming down to the last couple questions now, Kathy. Are there any other fights that you want to make or want to see this year, including the fighters in your stable that you can tell us about at all? Perhaps maybe some point in the summer or the fall period of the year? Yeah, Sergey really wants to fight Beterbiev. Of course, he's got to get past McCalkin first, but that's a fight that has been waiting for years to happen, and since they were in the amateurs. So that's one we would be pointing forward. Down the road, certainly Sergey and Bivol, is something that, again, if Bivol is successful, has to happen. If Sullivan is successful and wins the title, then Sergey and Sullivan would be a natural for later this year. That's what jumps to mind first. I'd also like to see some of my prospects, like Vaughn Alexander, maybe Galarza, will be on prospect, but move up into significant fights. We'd like to see that happen this year too. Several of them are going to be ready for step-up fights this year, so should be a big year. Very exciting stuff. And we were asking everybody in December what was on their Christmas wish list for 2018. However, obviously it's not December now, but just for you, Kathy, we will extend that question to January here. What is on your wish list to achieve in this calendar year in a realistic world? I'd like to find a way to get another boxing series, and we work on that every day. The kind of platform that we had with NBC from 2012 to 2014 was, really enabled us to go out and find some terrific fighters like Kovalev and Glaskov, who, but for a freak accident, could be heavyweight champ today. So we have always the challenge is to find that series, and we're going to keep working until we get another one. So maybe this year, we hope. Absolutely, fingers crossed. And just before we let you go, Kathy, is there anything at all that you want to get across to the UK listeners? Anything at all? No, just that I'm thrilled to see how big boxing has become in the UK. It's really nice to watch it. The resurgence that it's had there, and I really hope that we can duplicate that here at some point. But in the meantime, I'm a little jealous, and and I'm a little upset I don't have a heavyweight to bring over there to fight Anthony Joshua. But I'll get there eventually. In a couple years. You never know. It'll be somebody, I promise that. Excellent. Okay, listen, Kathy, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you this week. I wish you continued success with main events. Thank you for your time, and I'm sure we'll catch up again sometime soon. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. You have a good night.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 119 of the BoxHard Podcast. Omar Figueroa did text me back in the end. He said that the fight will be at 140, so that should be an interesting fight there. Another big fight also that got made whilst we've been on air. What we didn't talk about just a few moments ago in the news part is that Badou Jack will now be challenging Adonis Stevenson for the WBC World Cruiserweight title on May 19th in Canada. That one really is a humongous fight. Really looking forward to that. A huge night that one will be. A big thank you to our two guests on this week's show, the double Olympic champion and double professional world champion Miss Claressa Shields, and also the #1 female boxing promoter in the world, Kathy Duva. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.